But if there is anyone on the call that has this issue,
everybody does, especially the high-level professionals. Absolutely, yeah.
So if anybody has that issue, what my invitation is to don't look at it from the standpoint of boasting and bragging about how great you are. Elevate it to the level of service to the mission of the organization. An organization that's wanting to make a worldwide impact needs people who are serious about sharing in the mission and journeying forward together to make the biggest possible impact possible. And based on a 20-year track record of doing exactly that for every organization that you've ever worked for, your commitment to that level of service is beyond words to describe. But you're wanting to, saddle up and belly up to the bar to play that big kind of game. And I think that when you take it away from being all about you to being all about the impact you make for the organization that can be quantified and felt and experienced, so that when people hear your name, they smile and say, that's the person that we want to have on our team. So, again, it sort of reinforces that whole like, trust, and respect thing. You may have all the credentials and whatever parameters that people are looking for, but if they don't like you and it's all about you and not about what you can do for them, the opportunity is not going to be as big.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
You know what? You have said that so well. You've stated it really well, and you and I are like two peas in a pod when it comes to that. Something that I've noticed with my C-level clients, COOs, CFOs, CTOs, CEOs, they tend to like to say the word we when they're talking about their accomplishments. I am constantly saying, can't say we, you tell me what you did. And even if they led a team to make an accomplishment or have a big impact, it was their responsibility, because I always ask them, what if it had gone wrong? What if it had been screwed up? Who would have gotten in trouble for that? Your head would have rolled. So own that accomplishment and say I. Not only that, but when you say we in an interview, you're diluting your experience. You're diluting all of those achievements by putting it into a pool of we and not saying I did this. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Senior leadership, also people who are highly skilled and have had a lot of experience in the workplace, let's say 25, 35 years, even if it's at one place, they tend to say we because they identify so much with that company that they left. And so it's really important to say
this is a really good segue to say something that I think is really important, is that if you are one of those people who has been fortunate to work for the same company for a decade or two, there aren't that many people that I come across my path that are in that particular bucket. But one of the things that happens is you get steeped in the culture of that organization and the language of that particular organization, and you may be immune to the fact that other people from outside of that organization don't understand that particular vocabulary. So if you have a lot of acronyms of software that you work with, or you have to have a security clearance to work in your company and you're not even allowed to talk about whatever it is that you're doing. That has been my experience in previous lives. When you read your summary of accomplishments or your resume, ask yourself, if someone outside of this particular organization were to read this, would they understand it to the point that they would want to buy it? And so try to eliminate the use of organization-specific jargon and just clean it up to the point that it's plain spoken and powerful about the dollar impact, the dollars saved, the revenue generated, the new programs created that changed the game for the company so that markets could be opened. The leadership created to shift the culture from one of pessimism to optimism, whatever it is, because if you at the higher level of an organization, people need to be politically and organizationally aware. They need to be known as people who perhaps take a genuine interest in developing and encouraging others to work to their highest potential. There's some softer skills that people have that really matter, and so find a way to share those in language that is universal. And I often say, I mean, I'm a journalist by training. The Wall Street Journal is written at the 8th grade level, so anyone can read it and understand it and get it. And that's probably why it's one of the most widely read newspapers that people trust, because people can easily understand it. It's not that you're dumbing it down. I don't recommend that at all, but speak your truth in ways that people can truly appreciate the impact without having to reach for a dictionary or a decoder.
Yeah, Nancy, I think that's particularly important for listeners who are changing industries completely, because it's not just the organizational jargon, it's the industry jargon that you've been steeped in for the past 15, 20 years. Even if you've worked in different companies within the industry, there are a lot of people, a lot of clients, and a lot of people that come to me for advice that are moving from one industry to another because that industry is dying. And so they need to branch out. They need to look elsewhere. And something that I would recommend is that if you're working on, whether it be an executive summary or your resume or anything in your communication strategy for an employer, don't let your spouse look at it. Let someone else, maybe a friend of the family or maybe an extended family member that doesn't live with you, look through it. Because your spouse has heard that jargon for the past 15 or 20 or 30 years. And so they don't recognize that. And oftentimes, when I look at a before picture of a resume, it has a lot of that jargon because they don't realize it's jargon anymore. They're so
right. And so let's talk a little bit about reinvention for a moment, because this the last couple of years, the economy around the country has been pretty demanding. And in my life, in my work, I can't tell you how many people come to me in some stage of reinvention intervention. They did this other thing for 20 years, and now they're trying to do this completely new thing. And what a lot of people, earlier I said that one of the hardest things people find to do is to talk about themselves and write about themselves. The other thing that people have a hard time doing is bridging the past to the future and making it relevant. So sometimes people will say, you know, this is the last 20 years of everything that I've done, but if those 20 years of everything else that you've done does not relate and is super relevant to what next you would like to do, it's just noise. So you really have to create a link from the past to the present that makes sense, or else you need to practice what I call word economy and just get to the meat of the matter of the most relevant stuff. And I'm going to offer an example that may not be perfect for a six-figure earner, but it's going to make a point that might make people smile, and I think that's a good thing too.
Yeah.
One of my clients used to be a cheerleader for the Seahawks, which is a big football team here in Seattle. And her whole job was to get...
You think you have a big football team. I mean, we are home at the Seahawks are nothing compared to the Chiefs.
Okay, well, I'll give you that. But here's this gal whose job it is to get rabid fans to dance in synchronicity with a team of beautiful girls to get rabid fans cheering for their team. And now she's a professional organizer. And she says, I don't know how to make this work. And I said, well, before you're getting rabid fans to their feet by dancing in synchronicity with a team of talented cheerleaders, now you're getting family members to celebrate because you're turning chaos into organization, giving everyone cause for celebration. So the thing that was cool about creating that link between cheerleader to professional organizer is that we were able to create a link that made sense. Mm-hmm. It really is true that what she does now is very much a blend of what she used to do. But the thing about bringing up the whole cheerleader thing is that it's something that people here in Seattle are going to remember. They're going to like it. They're going to want to talk to her about it, and she's going to be able to tell a story about why it relates now to how she's able to bring families to their feet, celebrating the fact that they can actually find what they're looking for when they need it.
Yeah.
And creating the link between the past and the present in a story that actually makes sense, that, you know, what we want people to do, I mean, I always ask my clients to consider this. How do you want your audience to feel? What do you want them to do? And what do you want them to remember? If all you do is spew out credentials, but you don't tell a story that relates to how the wow that you created as a result of it, they won't remember you. And you want to be remembered because people want to do business with people they like, trust, and respect, people that they can remember well enough to want to call and say, you really rocked the house. Please come on in for a second interview, and let's have a negotiation about how we're going to compensate you suitably so that you will want to join us.
Let me ask you something. When you said you want people to feel, you want people to do, and you want to be remembered, what about the do part? How do you have people give employers calls to action? I mean, what's your recommendation on that?
Well, I
would
say
that
walking into an interview, assuming that it's gone well and you like the people you're talking to and you have a sense that you can really add value to that organization and that you want to put your flag in the sand and wave it for that particular organization as their new six-figure contributor, I would probably ask some leading questions like, what more do you need to know about me to be convinced that I'm the right candidate to make the difference that needs to be made here? Let's have that conversation. And I'd ask the decision maker to go deeper so that I could get a sense of that buying sign and know that I was moving closer to my goal, which is to be invited in to join. I would try to lead it down that road. What would you do? Just curious. How would you advise?
I certainly advise what you're saying, and actually it's so interesting because I was at a speaking engagement just on Tuesday where I gave the exact same advice. What else do you need to know about me in order to make a decision before we move forward? But actually when I was thinking of the what do you want people to do, it brought to mind that I actually like to put a call to action at the end of the brief summary paragraph up at the top of the one-page resume. In other words, and a call to action for those of you who aren't familiar with marketing or direct marketing is really telling people what to do. It is, let's have a conversation about what my abilities can do for you. Or if you're a company that's positioned for growth and you need a leader to take you there, let's have a conversation. Or call me if you are a company, blah, blah, blah. So I like to actually put that because I have found, just like all direct marketers, that putting a call to action anywhere in a document increases the likelihood of a response. And if you use different techniques, these little techniques, and you combine them all into your communication strategy in front of an employer, you increase the likelihood of getting a phone call. And so I even do it in the initial. I don't know if you ever do that with any executive summaries or bios that you do, if you have any kind of call to action like...
Oh, baby, yes, indeed I do. And I'm so glad you brought this up because for those of you who are just meeting me for the first time, I've been a publicist for a very long time, and my job it is to get people to say yes to stories that I pitch to them so that my clients can be seen, heard, and celebrated in the media. So here's the thing. One of the most powerful things that I do, whether I'm pitching the media or helping a client get a speaking gig or helping a client engage a client or secure employment, I often say advise at the end, something along the lines of, I'll follow up with you in a few days to explore your interest unless I hear from you first.
That's nice.
And
that's
and
nice.
I think I look forward to continuing the conversation. And I know this may seem a little old-fashioned, but I'll make a note on Monday that on my calendar that I wrote to ABC Software Corporation, and by Thursday I'm following up with the telephone call to the person that I made the pitch to, and I'm saying I was so delighted with that opportunity that's available that I wanted to be good to my word and follow up as I said that I would. Let's have a chat. Is now a good time?